Can reselling be passive income? The answer is no. The answer is no. I'm sorry to tell you. But I really think that over the last few years, in getting more efficient, in improving my systems, and doing different things and putting specific things into place, I have gotten it to the point where there are periods of time where reselling can be passive. So it's not completely passive income. Reselling is not that. But I will tell you that as a busy mom and as someone that likes to travel, I have really been able to come to periods of time where I have a passive reselling business based on the work that I did ahead of time. And so I'm here to share that with you today because I think it can be really helpful to you in managing everything that you have going on in your life and still being a really good reseller that makes good, reliable money doing it. So I call this flex batching, and I don't know if it's a real term or if I just made it up, or maybe I'm not even the one that made it up, but I think we all know what batch working is. Taking all your photos for the week at one time, doing all your drafts at one time. We know about batch working. This is kind of like a mega version of that, and we're going to go through exactly how I do it in my business, and then you can try to take away some of the nuggets because your situation probably isn't exactly the same as mine, but you can fit it into yours where you can still have some of the same benefits from flex batching, which helps make your reselling business more passive for periods of time. Okay, so I'm going to share with you the way I have it set up in my business, and then I'll give you the process for it. So this is what my reselling year looks like, because this is kind of like a yearly thing for me. And I'm starting in February. We'll go back to it. February, March, I have normal operations. April, May, I have ramp up operations to cover my summer. May, June, July, and August, 4 months, I barely do any work. Like I'm basically off. September, normal operations. October, November, ramp up operations to cover the holidays. And then December, January, I barely do any work. I'm basically off. And that's because all of our birthdays are like November, December, January. And then obviously it's all the holidays. So for us, that's a busy time. Maybe your birthdays are more spread out, and so you don't care about taking time off of the holidays, and so for you, you wouldn't need that. For me, I have 2 periods of ramp and 2 periods of off, and then I have some normal operations in between. And so for you, yours might look a little bit different, but identify, maybe you have a surgery coming up. Maybe you have a busy season at your day job and that's when reselling takes a back seat. Maybe you want to enjoy the summers with your kids like I do. So there's different reasons why you might want to set up your reselling year in a flex batching situation differently than me, but I'm going to share with you how I do it and then you can apply it to yours. So the process is that normal operations times, I work normally. I mean, you guys know I try to be very efficient. I try to get a lot done. But so whatever your baseline is, if your baseline is 5 listings a day and that's your normal operations, anytime you designate as normal operations, you're doing your basic. You're doing your 5 listings a day. So during ramp up periods, you will need to work harder than normal so that you can prepare for your passive income times or the times when you're off. So when you're in your ramp period, you're doing your normal operations plus extra to cover for your off period. So it is a busier time. So you have to plan those accordingly as well because you can't plan to have off unless you have the adequate ramp to allow for the off. And we'll talk about all of that. And then during your off times, you still will need to do some minimal work, but it's as passive as it can get for reselling, and it varies from business to business. So my passive might look a little bit different than your passive or off time because I do have a virtual assistant and I use Poshmark VA to do a lot of my sales generating activities for me. If you don't use Poshmark VA or you don't have a virtual assistant, you might need to do slightly more things than I do, but I'll share with you how it works and you can choose, how that would work for you. But it still adds a level of passive and off. So step 1 is to buy in bulk or do no sourcing periods. Now, I am going to read a little bit here just to make sure that I get it all in. And guys, let me know in the comments below, like, do you care if I read? Because sometimes I'm trying to talk to the camera and record a good video for you, but it's so much to remember and it's really difficult sometimes. Sometimes it would be really easy if I could just read the notes that I for myself. Let me know in the comments below if you care or not if I read my notes. Step number 1, buy in bulk or do no sourcing periods. So I've done both. Sometimes I buy pallets during the ramp up time so I can cover the amount of listings I need for when I'm off. I'm going to share examples of all of this. Other times, like right now, I'm taking a sourcing break and I'm focusing on relisting as my listing activity. And I'm having my inventory sell off while I'm off. Again, we'll talk about it more. So the main point of step number 1 is that you need to buy enough to cover the amount of listings you'll need while you're off. So if you're going to take a month off, you need a month's worth of listings to be bought ahead of time. So it starts with the buying, your preparations. If you're relisting, then calculate how many relistings per day you want to do. So for me, what I'm doing with this summer is I'm doing 20 to 30 relists per day. Going into it, when I started, I had about 1,600 active items, and that's going to cover the summer. So I'm actually recording this ahead of time. I'm batch working all elements of my business. You're going to see this in the summer, but I'm actually recording it before the summer. And so right now I'm planning out my summer's activities and my summer relisting situation. So I have 1,600 items right now. And I know that if I do 20 to 30 relists per day, that will cover the entire summer of listings. And that will allow me to not have to buy anything in advance. So I'm not dropping a bunch of cash right now. I could, but I don't want to, but I could. I could drop a bunch of cash and buy a bunch of new stuff to cover the summer, or I could just do a relist period of time. And so the relist period of time is cheaper. So if you don't have a lot of money to drop, I would recommend doing the relist period. And if you don't have a lot of time for your ramp to do extra work to have new listings, I would do the relist period. Okay. So step number 2 is process in bulk or not at all. So that's what I was just saying. So if you're sourcing in bulk during a ramp up period, you will also need to bulk process during the ramp up period. So if I bought a pallet during my ramp to cover my summer, I would also need to process that pallet during my ramp to cover the summer. So that's critical. If you have a photographer and a virtual assistant, this isn't as difficult because they will be doing the work for you. And that's what I've done in the past. I've utilized my photographer and my VA to help me process during the ramp period so that work doesn't all fall on me and it's a lot more manageable to source and process a bunch of new stuff to cover your off period when you have helpers. If you're doing it all yourself, you have to be realistic of what you can get done. If you don't, that's okay. You just need to fit it all in. Make sure you figure out how many items you need to process, and that means steam, measure, photograph, edit the photos, etc. per day, and this has to be on top of your normal operations so that you can get all the items done in time for your break in the amount of time that you need for your ramp. So again, I'm going to be doing a big example. So just if you have questions, watch all the way through, see the example, and then if that doesn't help you, leave your questions down below. Step number 3 is list or relist in bulk. So again, if you have a virtual assistant like me, then you don't really need to do the listings because your VA is going to do them for you and they're going to draft everything. And then all you need to do is put a price on it and make it live. You can do this in advance or in a few minutes per day during your off time. I've done it both ways. If you're relisting, you can do this super fast with the Vendu bulk delist relist yourself, or you can have your VA do it for you. I have my VA help with this. So again, you've bought in bulk perhaps, you've processed everything in bulk during your ramp up, and then you have to get those listings prepped during your ramp up. And so you can have it completely ready to go and all you have to do is hit activate, 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 or you can have them prepped and then all you have to do is price and activate, whatever works for you. But the idea would be either you're doing it or your virtual assistant is doing it, but all those listings have to be created and priced and ready to go so that during your off time, that work isn't happening. And so either they're just getting scheduled, like if you're on eBay, or with Poshmark, you're just hitting list, 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 but you're not actually doing the listing at that time. So it's prepping everything up until letting the listing go live. Now, step 4, all you have to do is ship, which is my favorite part and the easiest part. So for me, with step number 4, I don't mind doing the shipping. Like, it's pretty easy for me to hop in my car, 4 minutes, go to the storage unit, grab the couple items I need, take them home, print out the labels with my Dymo, ship them off. I have package pickup, so they come back, my post office comes and gets them. It's easy for me. If you have a different type of situation where you have to drive really far to bring your packages or whatever, your shipping situation is going to look a little bit different. So you do have to take that into account. That's different than my situation. I can't speak to that. But for me, if I'm making sales, I don't mind doing that shipping part because you're only doing it when you make the sales. And if I'm basically off and all I have to do is ship, I am happy as a clam. Like, that's great. Now, if you have a surgery or if you're away, if there's, you're traveling, if there's a reason why you can't, then you may need to explore different options. Do you need someone to ship for you? Or are you going to put your closet on, not vacation mode? I am going to do a video coming up about that, but you can leave your closet open and just not ship for short periods of time. And that can allow you, like maybe you let the shipping, creep up for a few days before you ship. So there's lots of ways that you can make it more passive for the shipping portion. But yeah, as long as you communicate with your buyers, you can go ahead and not ship for a few days. So let's get into the example now so you can really see how this works. So for a 10 listings per day seller, okay, just an easy 10 listings per day seller, if you were going to do the same summer off and holidays off as I do, this is what it would look like. In February, March, you do your normal operations of 10 listings per day. In April and May, you need to ramp up operations so you can cover the summer. So you need to do your 10 per day for normal, plus you need to do 20 per day for your ramp up. And here's why. Because you're taking 2 months for your ramp, but you're taking 4 months off, May, June, July, and August, where you're barely going to do any work. You're only going to do shipping. So for me, that is a hard ramp to do. And so that's why I chose in my current year to just do the relisting strategy. Because in order for me to do 10 per day plus 20 per day, that's a lot. That's a lot of buying in advance, which I could afford to do, but didn't want to be pressured to do because it's pressure to find that many items. And then it's a lot of bulk on top of the photographer and the virtual assistant and me to kind of manage all of it. So it depends on what your flex batching year would look like. If you have 4 months to prepare and you're only taking 2 months off, your ramp is going to look really different. So for me, because I'm taking 4 months off for the summer, that's 10 listings per day times 4 months. That's 1,200 listings extra that need to happen to cover the off period. And you're doing it in only 2 months. So your 2 months, you have your regular normal operations of 10 per day, but then you need to get 4 months worth of stuff done in 2 months. So you have to double your extra. And that's why you're at 10 per day for normal plus 20 per day to make up for the 4 months that you're going to be off, even though you're only doing the ramp in 2 months. So I hope that makes sense. It depends on the time of the ramp and the time of the off. And so if your off is shorter than the ramp, then the listings aren't as much. But if the ramp is short and the time off is long, you're going to have a lot to do during your ramp. And that's when you may want to choose to have a no sourcing period and just do relisting versus adding new listings. Let's move on with the rest of the year. So now you got off over the summer. Then September, normal operations, 10 per day. Then October, November, you have 2 months of ramp to cover the holidays. So you're going to do your 10 normal plus 10 extra ramp for the holidays, because the holidays are only December and January when you're going to be off and doing barely any work. So that's 2 months of ramp for 2 months of off. So then you're doing 10 normal during your ramp and then 10 extra to cover the 2 months off during your 2 months of ramp. So that is not as bad. And again, if you were going to do 2 months of ramp and 1 month off, you'd only have to do 5 extra listings per day on top of your normal. So for me, because there's only so many months and I'm trying to take so many months off, I mean, basically I'm doing 6 months of off, barely any work. And then I'm doing 4 months of ramp, and I'm doing 3 months of normal operation. Is that right? 2 months, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 6 months off. And I mean, that's actually how I do it. You know, over the summer, I will say there's some things that I do, but a lot of times it's not the reselling stuff. It's the content stuff. It's the print on demand stuff that I do for Amazon merch. It's like other things in my business. It's not so much the reselling, part because I do have my helpers and part because I set it up in this way. So now let's talk about how this can work for you. So there are some tips to flex batch your reselling business for any period of time, short or extended. So set yourself up for success year round. And this comes into play by having systems and processes that work for you with little effort. So examples of this are having a pricing formula. I have a link up here for a great video for pricing formula. Have an offer to likers strategy. I have a link up here for a video on my progressive offer to likers strategy. And have more systems and operations so that everything is optimized for maximum sales with minimal effort. And really, that's what my whole business is about. I don't want to work all the time. I know it seems like it because I'm sharing all these tips and stuff with you guys, but really, I don't work. And over the years, I work less and less and less because I figured out and optimized better strategies and systems to do things. So when I tell it to you, it's really for us all to be working less and then making that same amount, or working less and even making more than we were before. It is definitely possible. I have done it every single year. I work less and I earn more every single year. The next part is where I think our businesses differ, but this may bring you over to the dark side of having helpers. So eliminate, automate, and delegate. These are 3 things that I am constantly thinking about in terms of when I'm thinking about how to improve. So in order to work less and earn more, you need to eliminate tasks that you don't need to be doing. So automate tasks that can be done by a software or process, and then delegate tasks that can be done for you by someone else, like a virtual assistant or a photographer. These are just some examples. So I have a photographer that takes the photos. I have a virtual assistant to list and do the delist and relist for me. I have Poshmark VA that helps me send out my offer to likers and does my sharing for me. And then I have Vendu that makes my delisting and relisting super fast and easy for me and my virtual assistant. All my links are down below, so go ahead and use them so that you can get discounts, so you can sign up for some of these things too. That is my secret to doing very little work myself, always, but especially during the flex batch. And you don't have to have a virtual assistant. You don't have to have a photographer. But if you do, that's less work for you to do during your ramp. So when you're doing all your photographs for all those listings on top of your normal operations during your ramp to cover your off, I'm not, because I have a photographer to do them for me. When you're doing all of those drafts, plus your normal operations and the extra ones to cover during your ramp, I'm not, because I have a virtual assistant to do those things for me. But either way, whether you do them all or not, if you do it during the ramp, you still get to have that off time. So we can both end up with the same result. It's just your ramp up period is going to be a little busier than mine because I have the helpers. So for you, you might not be able to get as many listings in, or you may not be able to take as much time off. because you won't be able to handle it during your ramp since you're doing all the work yourself, but you can do it. Like, it is totally possible to do it. And I have other reseller friends that don't have a virtual assistant or a photographer. They do all the work themselves, but they still are able to take the summer off because they are working that hard during the ramp period. They also make their ramp a little bit longer, and they also adjust the lever of how many listings will go up during the off period. And that's something that you can do as well. So with the example that we gave before of somebody that was doing 10 listings per day, that's assuming that you have 10 listings per day during your normal operations, 10 listings per day going up during your ramp, and 10 listings per day going up even when you're off because you did them during your ramp. But what you could say is, during my normal operations, I'm going to do 10 per day. During my ramp, I'm going to do my 10 per day. But during off, I only want 5 per day to go up. So I'm going to lower my listings during my off time. That means that you have less to do during your ramp. And so you can cut those things in half. So when I said that in order to ramp up in April and May to have off for the entire summer, if you were going to go down for the summer months to have only 5 listings a day go up instead of 10, now you only have to do 10 extra per day. So you've cut the work in half. So there's lots of ways that you can move the lever. And that's what I want to empower you to do, is now that I've given you the framework to see how it is possible to do the extra work up front so that you can have periods of time off to live the life that you want to live. Now you can decide how you want it all to go. And that's what flex batching is. It's flexing the batch so that it fits your life. So for me, having 6 months off, 4 in the summer and 2 during the holidays, is what works really great for me. And I have helpers, and I choose to pull the levers in different ways so that all that work can happen. But for you, it might look a little bit different, but you can still utilize the same framework to make you have the same 6 months off as I do. Or maybe you only want half of that. Or maybe you only want 2 months in the summer. Or maybe you only want the holidays. You can change it however you want. But the batch working and then the flexibility to that batch working is what makes this all make reselling a very moldable lifestyle business that is wonderful, especially for moms or people that work full time or someone with health issues. So consider all of that. And the last couple points I have is just, it might seem overwhelming, and that's why I do have helpers, but it is why I chose to do the relist and delist and sell off my inventory instead of always adding new listings during the off times. So mostly over summer, I focused on relisting and selling down what I have. But then because the ramp for the holidays is less, I do put new listings up over the holidays. So you could choose to do 2 different strategies in your year. For me, the longer one, I do the relist and delist and use that opportunity to shrink my inventory, sell off what I have. But then when I do the second one, where I have off for only 2 months, I'm able to get all of those extra items, process all those extra items, list all those extra items, so that over the holidays, I still have new stuff going up. And so that's a great compromise to make the best of both worlds. And like I said, flex batching like this specifically works for me and my family during the season that we're in. I would imagine that, when Gio is older, like right now he's school age. So this works for us because my world revolves around when he's out of school. But I didn't do this when he was smaller because he was home with me all the time. So I did not really get to have big chunks of time where I was off. It was easier for me to just do small batches consistently throughout. And so I didn't work this way because Gio was home with me all the time. So I didn't have to worry about summers off. But I also probably won't need to be doing this for forever when he's older and isn't going to want to hang out with me over the summer. Over the summer, he's going to want to go play with his friends and I can work all I want. So I won't need to necessarily batch work in this way. And so I think for the moms especially, it's hard sometimes to know that, the season that you're in with your kids and your business, it all is fluid, right? And so the great thing about reselling and why I'm always so grateful that I found this is that I am able to mold this business around the life that I need and the life that I want, and putting Geo and my family first. It doesn't happen every single day, it doesn't happen 24 hours of the day. Everything has to work in, but I am able to put this business over here for the holidays. And I am able to take off and enjoy that time with Geo and still make money in my business and not have to completely close up operations or make no money. That's the other part, is that the reason why you do it this way is so that you can make more money with less time, or make the money consistently while doing less work for short periods of time. And that is fabulous. You can't do that with everything. So I hope that you have really gotten something out of this. I hope this makes reselling and making money from reselling online a really easy way for you to work it into your life. And let me know what questions you have down below. I'm always happy to help you, and I hope that you'll watch whatever video comes up next. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.